talk about socialism. There's a lot of talk about it, and should we become more socialistic, less socialistic in the process? We are not a pure capitalist nation. We have a lot of socialism. Sometimes you almost need to impose government controls. I realize that this is probably way before your time, but if you go out and look at your car, the idea of a seatbelt and a shoulder harness was fought against by the big three auto industry back in the 60s and even into the 70s. The car dealers did not want to put seatbelts in. They didn't want to put headrests in. They didn't want to put the shoulder harnesses in because it cost them money to do it. And people weren't interested in those kind of things. They weren't willing to pay extra. Well, the government forced them to do it, and we saved a lot of lives. A lot of people left having to be in wheelchairs their whole life because of the fact that they didn't have these devices. Now they're mandatory. And yes, maybe we squeak a little bit about stuff like that, but it saves lives on a regular basis. Now we have airbags. Now we have all kinds of things. You see mandatory crash tests as to which cars are the safest, and I recommend you look at that. You'll see a little bit of government control even in our society. Over here, here's a listing right smack dab out of Forbes magazine and Statistia. By the time you're done, you'll see who has the most control, a lot of it, and these socialist countries in the process. You won't see us listed in top 10, but you'll see the other ones. And you'll see a lot of times when it says socialistic, a lot of times they're nothing but glorified dictatorship. The official definition, not your textbook, but on Wikipedia, which isn't always the best source, but it means money may belong to the workers who make products instead of groups of private owners. Those evil owners, they keep all the money and keep it from us. People agree this type of system are called socialists. Socialists believe everything in society is made by the cooperative efforts of the people and citizens. That's a philosophical aspect of it. Really, from the book perspective, we're looking at it's an economic system based on the premise that some, if not all, basic businesses should be owned by the government. Government, government. They know what's best for us. They'll take care of us. Yes, yes. You need to be burped. Pat, 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 burp. Okay, yes, that's what we do. Government takes care of us from beginning, from birth to death. That actually is a lot of it when it comes down to you at socialism. Even a country like France, if you're running the business in France, it is extraordinarily hard to work. If you want to lay somebody off, it is common. It takes 2 to 2.5 years to lay them off. Even though your business may be hemorrhaging, it doesn't matter. You have to get permission. The board that you have, Airbus, which is a French company, it's got a member of the government on their board of directors. The car company, the biggest one in France, has a member of the government. They really get involved. They'll let you, because you're a little person, you can run your little grocery store over here, but we're watching you. You be careful. Yes, the citizens tend to be very highly taxed, and the government's more involved in protecting the environment and the poor than they would be in a capitalist system. And there's a lot of positives about them. You'll see some of them are very clean. This is a picture of Denmark. It's got a clean, modern public transportation. We don't have a public transportation system of any significance in the United States. I'm not certain we need one. But that being said, neither are the people down the street because they all have these things called cars. Because of the fact we have the wealth to actually buy the cars, the wealth to fuel the cars with electricity or gas, whatever it may be. So we have more prosperity. We don't want to be sandwiched into a subway system or trains or buses. Just depends where you're at. Benefits of social equality, supposedly. Usually you have different levels of society. Free education. One time I went to a country and I totally enjoyed myself while the entire time I was there from beginning to end, Egypt. I went on a thing called a felucca, which is a sailboat, and I wanted to go to Banana Island in the Nile River. And so we're on there and there was no wind. So the guy that sold us the trip and his buddy, they're on the felucca. They have 16-foot 2x4s, and I'm not exaggerating. They were 2x4s. They're trying to row to Banana Island. All that happened for the next hour, we moved across the Nile from one side almost to the other and then came back, never made it to Banana Island in the process. The guy that sold us a trip, he had a PhD in Shakespearean English because he had a free education, and he is rowing up felucca. I don't know what a PhD in Shakespearean English person can get a job in that, but that being said, he did. And if I heard too many times, time and tide, wait for no man. He must have said it 40 times. But that being said, so the free education, sometimes free doesn't mean it's always meaningful. Free healthcare, which is a big deal. free childcare. That's a big deal. That's real positive in my mind. A lot of people in the United States should think about that for their employees. Longer vacations, you'll see if you try to go to Europe the last week in June or the first week in July, you'll see people that are coming back from their 1 month off in June, and the people in July, they're all trying to leave early or come in late, whichever it may comes in the process over there, and they're all trying to escape the country for the 30-day vacation. It's very, very common. Short work weeks, generous sick leave, all those are benefits. But one of the problems is there's so much taxation that people avoid taking risks because if you're starting the business, you may have your business highly taxed to the tune of 50 to 70% of all the profit, and you get 30% or less. A lot of times, the brightest people will move to more capitalist country because of the fact they can keep all their money. If you're a doctor in England, okay, you might be making $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Over here, you might make $200,000 a year, and it's taxed so much that is your take-home pay. If you had the same practice over the United States, you might be bringing home $120,000 or maybe much bigger than a $200,000 practice. You'll see a lot of things with socialist countries. You have a brain drain. You also, if you go look at the number of patents and copyrights, you will see a higher per capita filing in the United States and other capitalist countries versus socialist countries. The brain drain is real. Then you have this guy, really by the time Karl Marx, he had a thing called communism. I'm not certain why you would follow something with the guy that committed suicide. That's how good his government was. But that being said, Karl Marx developed communism, and a lot of people, they follow that aspect of it, and it's an economic and political system. Now, boil it down to a philosophical source of governance, there's a lot of cool things about communism. If a person has the skill set and they don't have the knowledge base to go to college, and there are people that don't, okay, they get a job working with their hands, they make the same amount of money as the doctor who's gone to school for 12 years, they specialize in their own thing, they make the same amount of money. That being said, they can all live in the same house, in the same community. There's a part of me that really sits down and says, wow, there's merit to that. It's called true equality. Here's the problem, though. Whenever you have the doctor that spent 12 years of their life and she's working as a doctor all this time, she's out there, she looks over and says, I really worked hard to earn this. Why can't I make more money? Because I worked hard. I went to school 12 years. I'm working 55 hours a week. This guy, he works and he's only doing this over here. So there's an inequity over what the skill set is, over the knowledge base, but also the hard working base. And so communism never works. The closest model you'll see of communism is probably Cuba today. And the reality of Cuba is you have a diversity between the fact the rulers and the rule between the process. China purports to be a communist nation. It is a dictatorship. It is not true communism. Go take a look, because we'll talk later on about how many billionaires there are in China. You can't be a billionaire and be a communist in the same breath. It doesn't work that way. Billionaires earn their money through capitalism, making money, because in communism, you should all be at the same level. A billionaire is not the same level as somebody who's making less than $10,000 a year. Communism doesn't work. If you look at this, you'll see really Russia made a major change from communism toward a viable market economy. And then you really had a whole aspect of the black markets that started chewing things up. And really, Russia is questionable as to what it is. It looks more like a huge dictatorship with a few people ruling the entire masses in the world. You have the free market economies where the market determines what goods and services get produced, and especially at the equilibrium point. And then you have these command economies where you have a government dictating what is sold and who can sell it in the process. There's a trend really towards this thing called mixed economies, where you see a blending of capitalism and socialism. We're having more and more of that mixture here in the United States in days to come, but you'll also see around the world, you have that mixture, and you'll see a lot of times, you'll see there's a cycle, there's a push over here towards more capitalism and a push over here towards more socialism, and it's almost like a giant wave that goes through the global community. Know what a free market economy is, know what a command economy is, know what socialism is on a philosophical basis, know what a capitalistic system is, and the aspect of a mixed economy. Those are all relevant points for our class as well as the world outside of our class. Take care.